So in this animation, what you're seeing is my process of measuring spaces on site with a tape measure, obviously. Occasionally, I would just ask, if it were a business, I would ask the manager for a set of blueprints, and occasionally I would get those blueprints, make a copy, and then give them back, and then use those and do some tracings of those and transfers. And then I would take those really informal notes back to house sitting jobs. So one of my jobs throughout the first several years that I arrived in San Diego was house sitting. So I would have a full-time job, two part-time official jobs, and then multiple side jobs, multiple house sitting clients, pet sitting, sculpture and mold making, portraiture, just multiple jobs. So I had maybe half a dozen clients that would go out of town for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, sometimes a few days, but mostly for a week, 2 or 3 weeks. And I would bring my work that I did during the in-between times to their house and take those notes and then formalize the measurements. And the measurements were very specific. They were an 1/8 inch to an inch. So I would draw the measurements and put them in 1/8 inch, and then I would take those to Kinko's and scale it up. Or sometimes I would take those 1/8 inch measurements and scale them up to an inch, and then go to Kinko's and reduce. So it depended on the complexity of the environment. And so you can see all of these drawings that you're seeing right here are pretty much handled in a similar way. Mapping them out first, except for the passport drawing. That one's handled a little bit differently. And then this part of the animation you're seeing is all of the shows that my work has been a part of. And so it becomes part of the script because I did the drawings. The drawings are what got me accepted into graduate school. And then once I was in graduate school, I started getting a lot of shows, one after another after another. And then so I was constantly working, constantly trying to make new drawings. And then of course, once you have some pretty good quality work, you get invited to show that same work over and over and over. So this is what you're seeing. You're seeing this level of script, i.e. where my work got to be displayed, and those places then become an extension of my personal script. So, and I tend to, if you see the base diagram right there, I tend to make work in a body, and then I keep adding to the body. So this retrospective exhibition right here is kind of just showing all the drawings that go into that core drawing. So all of those peripheral pieces in those video animations, they all go into the research for the core drawing. So when I have an idea of a series of spaces that I want to measure and analyze, and really what I'm doing is a systems analysis of my own path in my life, my daily path. And at the time, this work that you're seeing right now, a lot of this work is pre-grad school, and this is the work I made that got me accepted into grad school. And then once I got into grad school, using that same methodology, I did keep making drawings about my new environment. But once I'm out of an environment that I'm analyzing, once I'm out of it, I stop making work about it. It sort of ends kind of abruptly. So once I was in graduate school, I started making work about a new kind of lifestyle. And ironically, that truck you see there that I lived in, once I got into grad school, like that first week, it broke down and I had to donate it and get rid of it. So now you're seeing a series of drawings that are occurring and shows that are occurring post-graduate school. And then this is my first sublet in Tijuana, and the view from my window and the couch that when you sit on, you see that view in the upper drawing. And these are like 10, these are massive drawings, 10 feet. And years later, then the drawing is in another type of exhibition where it's printed on a billboard. And these are all the exhibitions that drawing was in. And so you're seeing these opportunities that came my way because of my work. So that hotel, I was put up in that room for free for 5 days, and that's like $375 a night. So I was put up in the Omni for free, and then did the same sort of measuring process of my lifestyle, my occupation of the hotel. But I was working nonstop and like making notes and just out there in the lobby in this really expensive hotel. And I got like room service, and I got to go to, the buffet breakfast in the morning. And so this drawing here, this is about the military. So I wanted to make work about the spaces I occupied, but then of course it's such a rich idea that I wanted to go back in time and make work about the spaces that I had occupied, so that I can start where I am, plan moving forward, but then also go back and reanalyze the past, so that I get this really kind of interesting sense of where I've been and where I'm at and where I'm going. So this work here is where I moved to Tijuana, and I'm migrating back and forth across the border. And this body of work is talking about the two spaces together, and so I'm using, I have a girlfriend at the time, and she's Tijuanense. And so we're communicating on Skype back and forth, and really kind of just collapsing the border through virtual space. And, I'm traveling back to Tijuana to map out those spaces on public transportation because I no longer had the truck. And, I'm making an animation of myself drawing a line. The first animation I made of myself working on the register at Trader Joe's, right, involved like an interesting, rich environment. But then once I got into grad school, all I was doing is drawing, just drawing, and making ideas and drawing more. So I sort of boxed myself in with that concept. And so I just played that whole idea out as much as I could, So when I got accepted to grad school, I lived there for 3 years, 2.5 years. And then would commute. So I commuted a lot. I took the bus and down to the trolley, took the trolley down to the border. So you're just seeing like my path. This is all the documentation that I took. So in the process of mapping, I also just took a lot of video. This is all animation. This is not video here. This is all animation. So where you take a bunch of photographs and you put them in Photoshop into a big file, and then you just slide the file, like 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, and then make it a JPEG, and then you have like this animation. This part's a video. So there's the ones that are a little bit choppy, and the areas that are more flowy like this. This is like a fast forward video. So this is the taxi ride from the border to my house, and then this is my house right here in my block where I live. So I lived here for 6 years. That prior set of drawings where you saw the couch and the view, I lived in that sublet prior to living in this. So I did, I moved to Tijuana, so I'm still doing that process of measuring and mapping the spaces I occupy. There's my cat, Mamacita, and my little house, my backyard. So, it's a pretty big house. I made that garden, started off with dirt, turned into a garden, my motorcycle. And so I did the same thing. I just really dug apart like the roof, the view from the roof, the view from the ground, each and every room, every single like measurement. You could see the tiles. Like if I were to slow this down, we don't have time for that, but if I were to slow this down, you would see like all the imperfections, because the houses like are not made to to a specific code, and there's add-ons, and there's discrepancies, and so the drawing does depict those kinds of discrepancies. And then that big space for the 6 years that I lived in Tijuana, I got to use that big space right there to make these huge drawings. So the huge drawings that you see, kind of like a blip in my whole history of art making, is because I finally had the space to spread my wings. There's my little kitchen and, my lovely little place. So what you're seeing now is I'm highlighting each room and then showing you what that room looks like. And then when you see the mess, like right here, that mess, it's because in 2013 I got robbed. Somebody broke into my house. 3 guys broke into my house while I was in San Diego teaching, and took everything worth anything except for my drawings. They didn't touch, and they left a bunch of, just dumped everything on the ground. So this is the back porch. Needless to say, I left after that robbery. I didn't feel safe anymore. So anyway, here's some close-ups, and you can see some of the imperfections that are going on in there. And this drawing is super, super detailed. So this video really takes a lot of the resolution away, so you can't really see the fine detail. It's really quite gorgeous. And then these are just all the things I owned. So when I'm doing a systems analysis of a lifestyle, I'm like a dog with a bone, and I just gnaw and gnaw and gnaw on the bone until it just sucked the bone marrow out. So this is how I approach, drawing about my spaces. I analyze every single aspect of it. And then I keep getting shows. So my script keeps building, my reputation keeps building. My work keeps growing. I keep getting invited to do shows. This is an installation, me installing work for the Secute in 2008 for Limites Difusos. And the work was meant to be ephemeral, right? So the drawing on the walls was massively labor intensive. And then that big drawing, this is my neighbor, Kuka, and her husband, who had the fish cart on the corner. I hired them to cater. And this drawing you see, is a 30-foot long drawing that has 26 very detailed place settings. And then I wanted to serve the meal on top of the drawing. So, and I bought a security system and set it up. When you have a show in a place like a Secute, you tend to get a stipend. So I got $2,000 to do the show. I paid Kuka, my neighbor, $1,500 to cater, and then I spent, I spent a lot of money out of my pocket, but I also bought that security system. Okay, so the work continues to grow, and I get all these ideas. I can call this my burrow clock, because the burrow is like an icon or an iconic kind of a tourist destination for the past 100+ years, right? So even though I live in Tijuana, I'm not a Tijuanense. I'm still kind of a tourist. So I went ahead and just adopted that role and went out there and got pictures of myself on all the burrows and, made a series of work out of that and sort of inserted myself into the history of those photographs, right? And then made a series of drawings. So you'll see the drawings here. Yeah. So when you are doing a body of work and you keep getting asked to participate in shows, it gets hard to keep up with more and more work. It gets hard to sustain the level of labor and ideas. But somehow I managed to do it pretty intensely for quite a few years. Like, see, digging apart my passport. Now in this drawing, I'm digging apart my family's history. So, and then part of the cultural filmmaking, Space Odyssey 2001, that goes into my history of my upbringing in the United States during the space age. So this animation is me mimicking that monkey, like, bashing whatever with the bone. And then there's this drawing where I was invited to do a show, to be a part of a show in Miami. So I did a theoretical itinerary path from Tijuana to Cuba, and made a trajectory. At the time, it's not illegal for us to go to Cuba, so I made a map of how I would get there if I were to do it illegally. And then in this show, this installation, I asked my mom to come to the show, and instead of just being a spectator, to participate. So this is my mom's art, her craft, over here on the left, and then compared to my craft. So we were put up on stage, and as part of a performance, and her desk and my floor were supposed to be projected really big, but that didn't work out. That would have been pretty nice, but that didn't work out. So I started inserting as much as I could my mom into my installations where I could, so that she's part of my script, but I wanted to involve her in my profession. Okay, so now I'm also including other artists that I've gotten to show with. I've been so privileged to be able to show with really famous artists that I've studied, Vito Conci, among others. There's so many, Mark Dion. There's so many people that I've gotten to have my work in the same exhibition with. And so that's my drawing in the backdrop, right back there. And this is Vito Conci in the front. So I'm just tickled when people are not videotaping my work, they're videotaping Vito Conci's, but my work happens to be in the back. So in 2016, I had my own retrospective, right? So this is, I was invited to be an artist in a studio in this old Remax bank in Encinitas, and towards the end of that year, I had this solo show where I spent a couple $1,000s and remodeled the walls and filled in. There's doors behind these drawings that I covered up with drywall temporarily to put up those drawings. And then just, again, everything goes back to, you have these spaces that you occupy, and then these movements that you're performing within those spaces. And so there's quite a few animations that the movements are extracted from the spaces. So that's what you're seeing there.